Hey everyone, my name is Derek Arns, and today I'm going to be talking about the vulnerability for forcefully sending Ether into a contract for Solidity. So let's get started. In this example, the vulnerable contract is going to be a silly example, but it kind of gives you an overall idea of how the contract can be exploited. So the vulnerable contract here is just going to have a simple owner address that we'll pass in when we construct it. We have a fallback function, and in that fallback function we just call revert, and this is going to kind of show you that the fallback function isn't going to get called when we forcefully send Ether into it, otherwise the transaction would have got reverted. And then here's where the vulnerability comes in. So we're just going to have something called take ownership, and hey, if the balance is greater than 0, we are going to, whoever calls this is going to be the owner. And this is where the vulnerability comes in. The contract here doesn't have any way that you can visibly see that ETH is going to be getting passed in, but we are going to be able to pass it in. And then we just have a little helper function here to check the balance. And then the attacker contract is pretty straightforward. So it's just going to have a reference to the vulnerable contract. And then during the attack, it's going to require that it passes in some amount of ETH. And then we're going to take that vulnerable contract, make it payable, and then self-destruct on this contract, which is going to send all of the ETH from this contract over to the vulnerable contract. So let's see that in action. I'll do a quick compile of these two here. And let's select the vulnerable contract. And here we'll see that we're 5v3. So we're just going to copy this address here and paste it in. So we're going to say that this 5b3 is the owner of the vulnerable contract. And if we come down here, you can see who the owner is, and we can see that the balance is 0. So now I'm going to switch over to the attacker contract, and we will change the account type from the 5b3 to AB8. There we go. And we will need the vulnerable contract's address, paste that in there, and we will deploy the attacker contract. So now with the attacker contract, what we can do is we'll bump this up to maybe 3 ETH, getting a little crazy, and we will call attack. And we can see that the attack was successful. So now if we went to the vulnerable contract, we can see that the owner is still the previous owner, the 5b3. And if we check the balance, we can see that now the balance is 3, and I can take ownership of it, check the owner again, and see that now I'm the owner. And so this is one way that attacks can happen, and the way to kind of alleviate that would just be to make sure that in the vulnerable contract, you just aren't checking off of this address's balance, or as it can be changed by external parties. That's it. Thank you so much.